Okay, how's everybody feeling? How's the energy? Yes. Oh, that makes me very, very happy, and I'm willing to bet that that makes Davin happy too. Davin is our last speaker of the night, but in fact, Davin's real name is Trent. He called himself Davin for a story when he was 8 years old, and it just stuck. That's interesting. That same year, he hit what he calls peak cool, when he threw away his shoelaces instead of learning how to tie his shoes, and all the kids in his class followed his example. And it's been downhill since then. I think a lot of us can relate to this one. Davin has 4 degrees, and he uses none of them. Please welcome Davin to the stage.
Thank you, sir. That one is the magic bus, the one. Hello, everyone. My fuck up is actually in this little bag here, and I'll be giving away parts of it if you ask me questions at the end, so just keep that in mind. This is me. I've gone with a very simple slide style tonight. I hope you appreciate it. This is what I do. I am a web series producer. What does that mean? It's like being a film producer except with no money. And the analogy I give is, if you're a film producer director, it's like being a chef at a really nice restaurant. You know you've got people's butts in the seats for 2 hours. You can take them on a journey. You can make them have a little bit of sweetness at the start, a little bit of bitterness in the middle, have a dessert at the end. But if you're a web series producer, you have to give them the emotional beat in about 5 seconds. And it's got to continue to be giving those beats the whole way through. You don't know if they're going to watch the 10th episode first or the first one last. So it's like making a bag of potato chips. So I have spent my entire career trying to become the best potato chip chef that I can be. So that is my Dorito of choice on screen. Okay, let's get into the fuck-ups. I am going to talk about the worst project that I've ever been involved with, and it was my project, so it's my giant fuck-up. It was a show called Deep Six. It was a sci-fi show. The concept of the show was that I was going to, in every single aspect, go as far as I possibly could in making it scientifically accurate. So that was kind of the bedrock of the show. The concept was 3 pilots in 3 cockpits talking to each other. That was the scope. 3 pilots, 3 cockpits talking to each other. Now what I'm going to do is take you through 3 fuck-ups that made this the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life. Each one will get more aggressive as we go, and they're all linked. So I'll start at the bottom with fuck-up number 1. Fuck-up number 1 is over-scoping, or scope creep. Now, those of you who, I knew there was going to be a lot of entrepreneurs here tonight, and luckily I've done just a little bit of that, so I can speak some of the speak. If those of you have been involved in designing a product, you might know that you often get, it's interesting to go chasing after the next shiny thing, to add features, because you think that might be the solution. So I hired on a brilliant writer, and she said, and remember that I hired on a brilliant writer, we'll come back to that. She said, 3 pilots? 3 cockpits? No one's going to watch that show. It sucks. There's no romance, there's no death, there's no story arc, nothing's happening. Let's write a more interesting show. Let's write a show about aliens. Let's write a show about traveling faster than the speed of light. Let's write a show that has characters with special mind powers. Let's write a show where we're battling AIs. In fact, 2 of them. One was on Earth and one was on the space station. Let's write a show that's around realistic exoplanets. We set it around Tau Ceti B, which is a real planet. I researched that motherfucker for about 3 months to understand it. I literally, in the show, I didn't mean to say this, but in the show, you can see stars from the base that they're at. I actually found a software program where you could place yourself on that planet, and I took snapshots around and used that as the backdrop, so it's like realistic star patterns, but no one gives a shit. It's just, we tried. And a show about a heroine that goes on this fabulous journey where she ends up on a desert planet and struggles for a month to try and stay alive. Remember that. So you have to remember I hired on a brilliant writer, and there was this new character. But the budget did not increase. So I went from 3 pilots in 3 ships to 19 characters in 10 bespoke sets. Because everything in sci-fi you build from scratch. Just so you know, I'm happy to talk numbers. It was $420,000 was the budget. That's kind of mid-level for a web series. But if any of you are in the film business doing TV or films, you would laugh at that. That's what you pay for the snack table. And we were trying to do this giant show on that budget. This was my biggest fuck up in the show. It was on me to manage scope. And I got so excited about this version of the show that I started to lose concept of the fact that I might not be able to pull it off. We might not just be smart enough. Okay, on to the next fuck up. Related, but bigger. Because I was so busy now on this show trying to manage this much larger thing and I was directing it, I needed to hire some people. And I made the shittiest hire in the history of humanity. Not you. Someone who worked on the show is here tonight. I won't say names and I won't go into all the details, but I just want to give you 2 stories about this particular hire that will just give you some insight into what happened. First day, he arrived with a van. I said, oh, is that yours? He's like, no, I rented it for the show. I'm like, on what budget? Do I have to okay these things? Is this ours? He said, no, don't worry about it. It's extended from the last show. I've got it for the next 2 months. Everything's good. Fine. The gentleman gets T-boned in the middle of the show. He's okay, but the van is totaled. I find out then that he has assigned it to our show, but since he didn't tell me about it, I had no insurance. And so I had to pay $10,000 out of pocket for the damage on the van. This is the same gentleman who okayed his own raise without telling me, went to the accounting department and got them to write him a check for the raise, and I found out about it 6 months after we finished when we were doing the books. So, pretty big fuck up, a bad hire. Okay? Now, that was just me complaining. I feel much better now. Thank you very much. But it goes on to the next and most disastrous set of fuck-ups. This is deep stuff. This is number 3, because we're going to get into money, and it's going to get bad. So, the only reason why it's connected is that gentleman introduced me to some people that could solve some problems for me, and they turned out to be fuckers. And it hurt a lot. So I'm going to tell you about 2 of these relationships, and you'll see how they're related, and we are going to get into money. The first relationship he introduced me to was an executive producer who was going to help me out of a money situation. Now, this is the only thing that's going to be super complicated tonight. It's tax credits in the film world, but I think I can explain it quite simply. We pay, let's say you work for me. I pay you your salary, so I literally have to pay you. Then I go to the government and I said, I paid him, and the government says, okay, we'll give you a bunch of that back. And I take it and I put it in my pocket. That's the tax credit system in the film business. With my level of budgets, $420,000, it's very difficult to get a bank loan. We're too small. But I needed $100,000 so that I could pay everyone on my crew. My executive producers came in and said, we got your back. We signed a contract. They were going to loan me $100,000. We start shooting. I asked them, where's the money? They're like, don't worry, it's coming. We finish shooting. Where's the money? Nah, don't worry about it, it's coming. But 3 months after we've wrapped, oh, no, we don't have the money. I now owe $100,000 to my crew. I have no way to pay them, which means I'm unable to receive that grant from the government, which now puts me personally $100,000 in debt because of this little loan fuck up. I had a little bit of savings. I got some credit cards. I got a line of credit. I paid out as much as I could, and at the end of the day, I owed $30,000 to 24 people. But I was gonna be okay because of the other relationship that this gentleman introduced me to, my distributor. Now, the distributors where you actually could make money, and they had told me that they had done their analysis, and the minimum sales that they saw was $900,000. In fact, they already had a guaranteed sale for $200,000. You're all smart, you can see the math. I owe $100,000-ish, no problem. I'm gonna get $200,000. I'm actually gonna be okay. I might buy like a car or something on the far side of this thing. They stopped talking to me. I was wondering where the sales were going. Turns out they had no sales. They didn't sell it anywhere, but I did give them all the rights, which meant I couldn't even distribute my own show. And because I couldn't distribute my own show, I couldn't get other tax credits that I had that I could have gotten back. Then I discovered they were selling it without telling me. So I called them on it, and in the end, they sold my show for $70,000 around the world, and they claimed $72,000 in expenses to do so. So at the end of the day, I owed $30,000 to 24 people who were my friends, who were my crew, and $2,000 to my distributor, who wouldn't give me the rights to air my own show. Basically, mega fuck up. A lot of which was my fault because I didn't protect myself or my crew. And we'll get back to that. And here's the twist, my friends. Every story's got a twist. Identities have been protected on this slide. Remember that amazing writer that I worked with who helped me scope creep? Remember that new character that was really interesting who went on the month-long journey in the show? Remember, well, I didn't say, but one of the producers who disagreed with me to make all those deals about distribution, but I just had to anyway? Well, that was my brand new girlfriend. And she dumped me about a month after the show finished. But she was a producer on the show, which means for the next 6 months, we got together 3 times a week in person to do notes on the show. So while I was failing emotionally, losing friends, and had lost all my money, I had my ex-girlfriend sitting in person on the front row for every single step. Many times I cried in front of her when I'd get a phone call from someone asking for money. Obviously, no way to get this relationship. Who wants that relationship? So it was never coming back. Okay. I think I've primed you for my rock bottom. Very late in the game, I did get the rights back to distribute. I put it on YouTube and I got about 5,000 views, fine. My ex-girlfriend wanted me to spend $1,000 on a PR agent so we could drum up some interest, maybe get some interviews. We were arguing about whether or not it was worth it. I didn't think so. And on that phone call, I just started bawling. I was just ugly crying. And I don't ugly cry a lot, but I was, just terrible. And it started to rain, honest to God. Like, had not been raining at the start of the call, raining now at the end of the call. And I realized that I'm not walking anywhere. I'm just standing in public, having this sob, ugly cry about PR agents on the phone with my ex. And I saw a bench. It's actually, I know that it's on King Street. There's a little spot where you can sit on a bench. And I just sat there by myself in the rain. And I just cried for an hour. And then I said, okay, well, this is interesting. Here I am at complete rock bottom, but with enough self-awareness, I guess, to look around and just like smile through it and just, look at the graffiti and remember this moment and then pick myself up and go on to the next thing. That was my rock bottom. But unlike some of the other stories you've heard tonight, and I'm sure at other fuck-up nights, this doesn't necessarily have a moral or a happy ending. Not every project that fails is failing up into your next big, great success. What's interesting about nights like this is that you get really smart, intelligent, successful people to come up and tell you about the wonderful things they've done. And yeah, it's rocky roads, but they eventually get there because they've got grit, determination, and smarts. A lot of people don't. And those people don't want to come to a night like this and talk to people like you. I won a few awards for the show, and that's when I started talking about failure, because who wins awards after a massive fuck-up in your show? Well, this one just happened to sort of by happenstance and coincidence. And it gave me a platform to start exercising my own demons and just remind people, not everything works. And you have to plan sometimes, even if you're a white hat producer, even if you've done this, it was my 13th show, even if you're surrounded by amazing support staff, you can still make some critical errors that are gonna fuck this thing up. And you have to own them, and you gotta struggle through it, and you just gotta move on to the next. And it might not be up, but just forward and out of this fuck up so that you don't live in it. Okay, so that's one of the things that I took away from this. The aftermath of this, by the way, was about 6 months of me talking to these 24 people, trying to convince them when I'm going to pay them back. And I forgot, there was a couple companies I owed money to, and one of them was called Mr. Coffee. And I remember that guy who I hired, he hired Mr. Coffee. And we spent apparently $15,000 on coffee, which I still to this day don't understand how that's possible. It's a front for something. But just imagine me like 6 months after the show is done on the phone with Mr. Coffee trying to explain to him, don't worry, your money's coming. Like in a year from now, you'll get it. I recently went to go find some fun videos of me down in Yuma, Arizona, where my parents live, making a little fun video for my family. And instead, I stumbled across all the videos that I was filming while I was down there to my crew, apologizing for owing them money. So that's the legacy of this goddamn show. So this is my learnings, and this is going to be kind of weird. And I've tried to think of like what it would sound like coming out of my mouth, and I don't know if it makes any sense or not. But I don't want to give you lessons to learn from my experience, because I think this is a room of entrepreneurs who know that you might actually have to struggle through to move up, and that if you're not fighting hard, you're not going to win. But I took something very different from this, and so this is my bizarre ending to this speech, is I actually want to give you permission not to do that. If you're looking for someone who will say, I should have gone slower, that is the case with this project. And in the future, I took from this, I need to move with more caution. I need to move with more love with the people that I work with. Don't treat your company as a family, that's disaster, but treat them as friends, because many of the people that I work with are the people I want to be friends with 15 years later. And as you get older in life, it gets harder and harder to make friends. You can keep trying startups, but those friends are really important. Love the people that you work with. Be open to them, be accessible to them, learn from them, realize they might know more than you, embrace them, bring them on as early into the project as you can. Those were the lessons that I took away from this show. And I'm at the end of my talk, but I just want to deflect the sort of like, he's done talking so we can applaud now applause to someone else, which is Sebastian, who's here in the audience. Oddly enough, he is the man who peed in his boot. Sebastian was the production designer on this. He suffered through it with me. I owed him money for a very long time. We're still friends, and we're working on a new project together. So as you applaud the end of my speech, please applaud for Sebastian, who really had to suffer.
That was awesome. Thank you. Just a really quick question. You mentioned this guy who was able to give himself a raise. Like, I'm just asking for a friend, like how exactly? Just kidding. Okay, do we have any questions for Davin?
You can. Okay. Thank you, sir. Wait, here, you get something. So I said I have the fuck up here in my bag. You get a DVD of the show. There you are.